Hi all, I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum. Today is Thursday, March 23, 2023, and you're watching WGAN-TV live at 5. We have an awesome show for you today. How virtual tour photographers can do one-on-one networking by phone using the OWWL app. And our subject matter expert today is OWWL app founder, Jason R. Hill. Hey, Jason, thanks for being on the show today.
Nice to see you and nice to have everybody listening today. I look forward to today's episode and sharing the journey of OWWL and bring some people on the platform to talk one-on-one with us.
Awesome. So, Jason, before we jump into what is OWWL, how it works, etc., I'm just going to make some calls through the OWWL app, and that'll give context for our viewers today, okay?
Let's do it.
Okay, and if for our viewers want to follow along, the app is the OWWL app. If you use the short link wgan.info/OWWL, OWWLL, that'll give you the option of selecting either the iOS app or the Android app, and use the referral code WGAN, and we'll have a special offer for you later in the program. So I'm going to begin by calling Alex.
And then once you get them on the line, I'm going to share my screen, of course.
You can go ahead and do that now. That's fine.
Perfect. And everyone will get to see what Alex looks like on the other end within OWWL's app. Okay, we are mirrored now. Now I'm going to go to the app.
Hey, Alex, this is Dan Smigrod, host of WGAN. Hey, I'm host of WGAN TV, and you're live on WGAN TV live at 5. Thanks for taking my call. Still with me, Alex? Alex?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. Sounds like you might be driving, so maybe you might pull over for a second.
I'm actually just, I'm standing in one place right now.
Okay, awesome. So, Alex, I noticed that in the OWWL app, you were a licensed real estate broker in New York and Florida. You're among the top 9% Douglas Elliman agents company-wide in 2020 and part of a husband and wife team. Tell us about being a real estate associate broker for Douglas Elliman.
It's intense. It's intense. So there's a high regard for agents in that capacity of being able to work in the luxury market, being able to have a good understanding of how to determine what value is when it comes to working with sellers and buyers. And Douglas Elliman has that brand. You know, my wife and I, Leah, we both were licensed in New York and in Florida, like you said before. And having to have sold homes in New York and sell homes in Florida and make transitions between buyers and sellers in both different states, it makes it much easier for us because Douglas Elliman is a national company. So it's very easy for us to take clients from New York, California, Colorado, or even Texas and transition them into the state of Florida. We have a network of about 7,000 agents that Leah and I like to work with across the country. So when we have a home that we want to market, a luxury home or any property that we're working with, we're able to work with 7,000 agents across the country and network through the Douglas Elliman brand. And it has helped us immensely.
Awesome.
Working with them.
Awesome. And what would be I see that you're new to the OWWL platform, the OWWL app. What would be the best possible outcome for you being on OWWL?
I like to help people. You know, that's basically what I do. You know, I advise people on what the right direction is selling real estate. You know, I have a lot of experience, and a lot of my buyers and a lot of friends come and they consult with me. They ask me a lot of questions of what they could potentially forecast or what they can see coming down the line in a transaction, because I've had so much experience and I've seen almost everything on the landscape of a purchase or a sale transaction, a lot of people ask me what to expect. And I say, you know what, listen, if someone's planning on selling, give me a call. You know, if you have any questions, give me a call. I'm here to help. That's what I do for a living. You know, I help people in a transaction, whether it is the purchase or it's on a sale, but sometimes just, you know, we talk about the market. You know, I have a lot of gut instincts when it comes to which direction the market's going. And I'd like to think that I've been right pretty much.
Alex, so I'm founder of a community of 20,000 virtual tour real estate photographers. They may be curious about what the perspective is of a licensed real estate broker. Is that the kind of thing that they could be on OWL, call you and say, hey, you know, this is what I'm doing in my market. What's your reaction? How do you think I should change my pitch? How should I approach agents in our city?
Yeah, well, that's how I utilize that, OWL. I like the opportunities is because we're putting ourselves out there. You know, we want the phone calls. We want you to call us. We want you to ask us our advice. I mean, that's the reason for being on the application. I love it. You
Awesome.
know, because I do the same thing when I look to go call somebody. They're putting themselves out there. So I'm building a relationship with people. I'm getting a bunch of advice, whether it's my industry or any other industry. I'm able to reach out to somebody who might be in the development area that I might have a question for that I can't seem to find somebody to answer it for in my particular market, but I might get somebody to answer it for me in another market, and they're readily available.
Awesome. Alex,
that's how I like it.
Terrific. You're listed in the OWL app as Alexander. Help me with your last name.
Sajovitz.
Sajovi.
E-S like Sam.
Alexander Sajovitz.
Yeah, I've had a problem with it for the past 48 years.
That's
so.
okay. My last name's Smigrod. I have to spell it out for everyone. Alex, thanks for being on the show, and good luck with the OWL platform.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate you calling in.
You bet. I'm going to move on to talk to Kelly. And before I do, bear with me one sec. I'm going to call Kelly. And when we get done with a few calls, we'll talk about what it is that I'm doing. I'll have Jason tell us about that. So I'm looking at Kelly's profile.
Hello, I'm Kelly Iannone. I retired at 40 from the Walt Disney Company after realizing that climbing the corporate ladder was not fulfilling for me. I did so through investing in apartments, and I now help other high-performing professionals and business owners passively invest in apartments without the headaches of being a landlord. This allows them to start to separate their time from money and gain financial freedom earlier than they ever thought.
Awesome.
Give me a call.
So thank you for playing that video. That video is actually on the app, so I could see a little bit about Kelly. I'm going to go ahead and call her.
And for the audience listening, when it's flashing live, that means Kelly's accepting calls at $1 for a 10-minute block of time. And there she is. She just picked up.
Hey, Kelly, it's Dan with WGAN, and you're live on WGAN-TV live at 5. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
Kelly, I noticed on your OWL app profile, you have nearly 5,000 followers on LinkedIn. How did that happen?
I sure do. Well, I began gaining followers. I've been a long-time LinkedIn user from my career in corporate America. But when I really started talking more about what I'm doing in real estate, building passive income and achieving financial freedom, it really seems to attract a lot of people who are interested in learning more and having conversations. And so I kind of grew an audience organically there. Not a surprise.
Can you tell us more about passively investing in apartments?
Yeah, so I own a real estate investing firm, and we buy apartment complexes in the Southeast United States. And we do it for folks that are frustrated with the volatility of the stock market and their assets aren't performing how they'd be expecting, and they want more control, but they don't necessarily have the time to acquire real estate and manage all the day-to-day assets. And so that's where we come in. We identify properties, and people invest alongside us, and they are passive from the perspective of once they identify the deal and they vet the deal and the operator, and we do that hand in hand with them. They invest in the deal, and then they receive all the returns of a property and the benefits of owning real estate without having to deal with the day-to-day hassles and the headaches.
And how do you use OWWL?
So I use OWWL in a couple different ways. OWWL's been a great platform that it's really expanded my reach and my audience on LinkedIn. You know, I've got a lot of professionals that I'm connected with and some business owners, but on OWWL, I've found that it really opens up a whole different network of people. A lot of business owners, a lot of influencers out there, and a lot of people who are doing great things. So it gives me an opportunity to kind of go through profiles and find my ideal avatar of who may be interested in passively investing, and just starting to network and have conversations. And if there's an opportunity that we can work together, great. And if not, it's just another connection and network. And that's what I do from an outbound perspective. But then I also find having real estate on my profile, you know, a lot of people watch HGTV and they want to get into fixing and flipping apartments, or not apartments, but fixing and flipping houses. And they've always wanted to invest in real estate, but not sure how to get started. So I get a lot of people that both on LinkedIn, and it's great because I can kind of push into OWWL now, is to call me there. And I'm kind of time blocked into how long we can have these conversations, as opposed to just giving away free advice all the time. But it's a great way to kind of have that conversation, and then we can extend the conversation as it makes sense for both them and myself.
Our community are typically virtual tour photographers, and they're trying to figure out how to develop new business. Is that the kind of thing that it's okay to call you, Kelly?
Yeah, you can totally. I think I'd be more of a thought partner from that perspective. And then I guess I would say depending on the audiences or the market. So I think, and you're in Atlanta, Georgia, Dan. I see that here. We've got a few assets that are in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And of course, whenever somebody's looking at renting real estate, having photos and having videos and having those 360 is super impactful for pre-leasing these units. And one of the biggest expenses in owning real estate is the vacancy, is the time period where somebody is not living in the property and paying rent. And so anything we can do to shorten that time frame, and using virtual photography and video for that would absolutely make sense.
One last question, Kelly. Thank you. I noticed that you worked for one company for 19 years.
Yes, I worked for the Walt Disney Company for an extended period of time. And yeah, it was always my dream as a kid to work for the Walt Disney Company. So I was born and raised in Michigan, moved to Florida, got a job there. And unlike most millennials, I'm an elder millennial. Unlike most millennials, I stuck with the same company. At some point, I figured out it no longer fulfilled me. So I actually retired from the company on my own terms earlier this year. And I'm just continuing to pursue my real estate ventures and help other people on their path to financial freedom as well.
Awesome. Kelly, thanks for visiting with us.
Absolutely. Have a great day, Dan.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to move on to making another call to Brian.
Now, Brian has the most reviews on the entire app. He has outpaced myself.
Hey, good evening. This is Brian. How can I help you?
Hey, Brian, this is Dan, the host of WGAN-TV, and you're live on WGAN-TV Live at 5. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, thank you, Dan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good visiting with you again. Hey, Brian, I noticed that you have 1,000 plus 5-star reviews on OWWL and have taken nearly 250 calls. perhaps you might be the right person to ask, how do you use OWL?
So OWL to me is really a connection tool, much more than a social media type platform. It's a place where you can have conversations with pretty near anyone. And I love the timer aspect because it keeps you on track, keeps your conversations from running on forever and just wasting time. But then I also love the little, I call it the digital doorbell, where if somebody sees one of my Facebook Lives or an Instagram reel or some other content on the web, I do a call to action to reach out to me on OWL. And whether I'm on OWL or not, they can ring my doorbell, letting me know they're there. And now I can go on and take a call, or we can have a conversation. So that's where the app is doing its part to connect two individuals, and you don't lose your privacy. So you're not just blasting your own personal phone number out all over the place. There's just nothing like it for connecting with people.
And what tips do you have for those that are new to OWL that are interested in business development?
As far as developing their own business?
Yeah, I could imagine you have some tips on how to be successful at using OWL.
So one of the biggest tips that most people miss is make some outbound calls, because it's not like cold calling. It's literally people run to the phone when they either hear the doorbell, so to speak, they get the message that you want to talk to them, or if they're live and you actually call them, their phone rings, they run to the phone. They can't wait to have a conversation. Totally different than when, a telemarketer, for example, rings your actual number. Now you wonder how they got your number and why they're trying to bother you. Because of the very small financial exchange with every conversation, people run to the phone because it's $1 or $2 or $5 or $10, depending on their price. But I look at it as it's less than the price of a cup of coffee, for example, and I can sit down with them for 10 minutes, pick their brain, get some information if I need to, which has, saved me a ton of time and effort, from attorneys to celebrities, etc. But it also gets me all kinds of exposure. So if they want to get on radio and TV, I've done that. Podcasts are great. There's a lot of ways you can use it, but I also can use it to serve other people. So I can call another business owner, find out who they are, what they do, what their pain points are, and help them come up with a solution. So it may not be myself, but I can now refer them to someone else on the OWL platform that I've talked to that may be a perfect fit and able to, serve them well.
I was looking at
so that's one of the best things I have with this platform.
Yeah, I was looking at some notes from you regarding building connections and expanding relationships, listening deeply. Do you want to expand on any of those points?
Yeah, those are keys to having, amazing conversations. Obviously, listening to the other person, kind of, I guess you could say reading between the lines, but listening between the lines, listen to the conversation and ask clarifying questions. People love to talk about themselves. And if you can find out what their true problem is and dig a little bit, a lot of times it's not what they think is, their surface problem is what they easily share with you. But if you dig a little bit, a lot of times you'll find out what their real problem or their real struggle in business is. And now you may be a perfect fit to help them. And when you come to solve or give them a solution to their problem, they see it much different than pitching. When you just call people to pitch, they feel like it's another ad, because I think we're all sold out, so to speak, on ads and pitches everywhere we turn. Doesn't seem to matter what platform you're on, whether it's YouTube or Facebook or you pick one. There's ads everywhere staring us in the face everywhere we turn. And so we're tired of being pitched, but we all love to be served. And I think that that's one of the biggest keys to expanding your business through a conversation.
Brian, you're listed on the OWL app as Brian Strubher. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, we say it's Strubhar, but same difference.
Strubhar, Strubhar, Brian.
So it's Strubhar.
Strubhar. Okay, that's great.
You got it.
Brian, thanks for taking the call. Appreciate
it.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye-bye.
I'm going to do one more call, and then we'll ask Jason to talk about what it is that we're doing. And
This is like the old days of Z100 where you get to call people in on the fly, right?
We're going to take the next caller. So I am calling Mike.
And while Dan is doing that, if it's flashing green, that means you could call them at the rate that they put on their profile. So Mike is $10 for a 10-minute call.
Hey, Mike. Mike? Can you hear me, Mike? Hey, Mike, it's Dan Smigrod, host of WGAN-TV, and you're on WGAN-TV Live at 5. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You bet, and good visiting with you again. You're CEO of Norhart. Tell us about your company.
Yeah, at a high level, we design, build, and rent apartments, but really we're focused on solving housing construction costs. And we're already achieving about a 20 to 30% reduction in costs. We believe that someday we could achieve a 50% reduction in costs. But imagine what that means. I mean, someday your rent could be half, or your mortgage payment could be half. But ultimately, we're just looking to solve America's housing affordability crisis.
So, Mike, I met you at the Podfest podcast conference in Atlanta. Aside from both of us having interests in podcasting, what else did we have in common?
Boy, the Matterport stuff, right?
That's right. So tell us what you're doing, what Norhart is using Matterport for.
Yeah, so we have apartments, and what we love about Matterport is that we can scan the units, scan the entire building, so that people can visit our website and get a full volumetric feel and walkthrough of what those spaces look like. It's just a marvelous technology.
And tell us about the size of Norhart.
Yeah, we're about a $200 million company today, and we have about 1,000 units under management. And our construction arm is the biggest division, and we're producing at about 500 units per year right now.
So those are pretty big numbers. What is the CEO of a $200 million plus company doing on the OWL platform?
Great question. You know, what I'm experimenting with is I get a ton of people who reach out wanting to pitch, wanting to connect in some way. I simply don't have the time to connect with everyone. It's quite a few every day. But I remember back when I wish I could connect with CEOs and leaders, and I want to give people that opportunity. So this is kind of an interesting platform where it weeds out those who are not really interested to connect with me and gives people who actually want to have a meaningful connection, want to have a meaningful dialogue and a meaningful relationship, give them an opportunity to actually connect with me. And that's been fun.
Mike, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you. So we were visiting with Mike Kaeding, Kaeding, the CEO of Norhart, also on the OWL platform. Jason, how about taking it off of screen share and let's jump into visiting on this topic. Even before even before we start visiting on like the mechanics of OWL and how you
Absolutely.
use OWL. Excuse me, even before we start visiting on what is OWL and how does it work and what are the mechanics, you know, we just made 4 calls, boom, 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 boom. People all prearranged. They were expecting my call, but even if they weren't, it's that easy to connect. Let's go at the highest level. How do virtual tour photographers, how can virtual tour photographers do one-on-one networking by phone using the OWL app? How do you develop business with OWL?
That's a great question. And when you look at the most successful experts in the world, it always comes back to rich relationships and connections. And OWL enables that. At the end of the day, we have so many platforms today like LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and it's gotten harder to have a genuine conversation with people because everyone has their guard up. So you just heard Mike say that. He has 50,000 plus connections on LinkedIn. He posts regularly, and his inbox is just overwhelming. And a lot of good opportunities, unfortunately, are missed by Mike. And there's a lot of people like myself in Mike's inbox that said, let's come on, my podcast, or let's chat about OWWL. And he just can't get to all of them. But I'm a business professional that wants to call Michael, and I'm willing to spend $20, $50 for a quick conversation just to chat with him. So people in the industry that you're referencing can go in there. They can look for people in their home area. I'll use Florida as an example. You look up South Florida, and anyone who puts South Florida in their bio will show up in the search filter. And then those individuals can reach out to people in real estate. We have a lot of real estate agents on the platform, and just connect with folks like Alex, who we spoke to earlier, and really try to form a collaboration. No different than meeting in person at a networking event. OWWL enables you to do it at an extreme fast pace. We saw Brian had over 1,000 phone calls with different people. It's like, where else can you meet 1,000 people in the matter of a year or two, right? And also log all the calls, right? Brian can now look back and see every individual he spoke with. He also can use those reviews on his website, because people are referencing what he spoke about and saying, Brian's a professional. He educated me how to use social media better, for example, or how to use OWWL better. So there's just so many techniques where you can make outbound calls and build relationships quicker in a professional setting because of the review mechanism that we have at the end of every phone call.
So I'm totally confused. This just feels like cold calling. There's this app, I dial a number and I start, what happens? I mean, is there best practices so that it's not like.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So the power we give over to the expert to list their price at what they want. So I'll use an example. Let's say we have a patent attorney, right? Everyone's always knocking on patent attorneys' doors on LinkedIn and Instagram trying to get advice for free. So the patent attorney can list their price at $50 for a 10-minute phone call. So now they know that the individual calling them really wants to speak with them. They're not wasting their time, and they could jump on a quick 10-minute call. And if the call is good, the advice seeker can, of course, extend the call and add more time, 10 more minutes for $50 as an example. So we give the power to the expert to set their own rate. So they're never going to be faced with the issue of spam phone calls or calls that just aren't appropriate. They also can review the person calling them. So if somebody calls them inappropriately and is really trying to date them, right? Well, guess what? Stamp, 1-star review, and that person just hurt their profile for future calls, of course.
Well, we're really talking about two things. One is receiving calls, and the other is making calls. So let's focus on, I'm a real estate photographer. I shoot virtual tours. I've just heard of this OWWL app. I go to WGAN.info/OWWL, OWWLL. I use the referral code WGAN. I'm in the app. I see people are live, and I select one and I call. What is it that I say to that person? How do I know? How do I begin a know, like, and trust relationship? It just feels like dialing for dollars, and I know that's not what this is. So what are the best practices when you are making outbound calls? We know the photographer is interested in developing business. I imagine the first thing the photographer says is not, "Hi, I'm calling to see if you'd like to buy a virtual tour." So how do you use the OWWL to successfully do these one-on-one networkings that may lead to business?
Well, that's a great question, because when you go to a networking event, really the first thing someone does, hands you their business card, you size them up, based on what they're wearing, and you have to, have icebreaker questions to get to know someone. But OWWL makes it easier because we list all their social media handles on their profile. So that individual can list different questions that are most commonly asked to them as an expert. So we looked at those 4 profiles while you were on the call with each individual, and we saw how Mike listed it. He listed, I have over 50,000, connections on LinkedIn. I run a company that has approximately a $200 million valuation. Feel free to call me about, hiring and firing, techniques, because he's gone through so many challenges operating a business of that scale. He also works with the Special Olympics. So immediately, if the Special Olympics hit home to you, you could call Mike and really just have a natural conversation about the Special Olympics or any other questions that he lists. So the best practices are really that you list common questions that people would ask. So that way
Well,
you don't have to just
we're not up to
randomly.
that part yet because we're making calls. So
Yes.
I promise to get there. So I think what I'm hearing is if I'm a virtual tour photographer, I've joined the OWL app, I'm
Yep.
ready to make my first call. Before I make that call, look at that profile, read their LinkedIn profile, their
Yep.
Twitter, their Facebook, whatever social media that they list, their Instagram, then read the profile that's in OWL, because
Correct.
many OWL people list even suggested questions to begin a conversation with them.
Correct. When we look at platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram, sometimes it's hard to get to know the individual because they keep you within those platforms. But OWL, we
Yes.
let people list all their social media handles up to 4, including a website. So people can click your profile and immediately get to know you as an individual, as a business owner, as an expert, or you could even watch the video like we did with Kelly, where Kelly rarely referenced exactly, what to expect on a phone call. So the beautiful thing about OWL is we don't hide other platforms, on our profiles. We allow them. So that way you could get to know the individual.
So I think the first thing I heard was get to know the person that you're planning to call before you call them, because they're giving you all the resources to understand about them. And then I think second, and I think a number out of the 4 even said this, Brian in particular, is deep listening. Listen,
Yes.
Don't start selling, listen. And keep asking questions. As Brian said, people like talking about themselves. So keep asking questions. So third would be listen. And then I think third, what I heard was keep asking questions.
Yeah. And also just, being consistent, right? Every single day I drive to work, drive home from work, I typically make an hour call and I get to know an individual. So sometimes people are bad at listing things on their profile, and you call them and you have a great conversation and you find out so much about the individual that was not listed. And there's so much power to the platform because a lot of individuals just want to speak, right? And they list themselves at $1. So the power is also in not always
$1
judging.
for 10 minutes.
Some people charge $1 for 10 minutes because they're okay with the volume of calls coming in at $1. And if they're getting too many calls, they can increase it to $10, $20 for a 10-minute block of time, of course.
Okay. And then I think maybe the fourth thing I heard is like, oh, well, where do I begin? There's so many people on the OWL platform. Well, there's search capability. So if you want to search for, I'm in Atlanta, I'm looking for a real estate agent, or I'm looking for a realtor, people on OWL tend to list things like where they're located and what their profession is. Then it's possible to do a search to find perhaps some needles in the haystack of where to begin, so that you're beginning a conversation with someone who's actually in your market that is doing something related to potentially either being a potential buyer of real estate photography in general, virtual tours in particular, or if they get to know you, like you, and trust you, be in a position to refer you to someone else that's in the market.
And that's big because a lot of people in our community see a lot of value in referring that individual they're speaking to another community member. So like Brian mentioned, when you called him, he'll have a conversation with yourself, and then he'll bump into another real estate professional or photographer, and then they'll say, hey, you have to speak to Dan. And I do that all the time. So it works as a really great connecting tool where, LinkedIn works well with that, emails work well, but you have people live on the platform. So when you refer someone right after a call ends, you potentially hop on another OWL phone call, which is pretty unique.
So the big picture is make outbound calls. Is you got to take the initiative. It begins with a phone call. And if you think about perhaps in a previous world where you took the time, went to an event.
Yeah.
This is pretty efficient with your time because you can make calls back to back to back. I think to just flip it around to say, okay, I've just joined OWL. I noticed this when I joined OWL. I kept getting calls because people saw that I was new. My badge said new, and therefore
Yes.
I didn't even need to make an outbound call to like, oh, I got stage fright and calling somebody I don't know. No, just sit back and people will start calling you.
Yes.
So I found that process super interesting. And it wasn't like people called me and said, buy my service, buy my service, buy my product, buy my product. They actually called as you might connect socially at a networking event and said, gee, Dan, I noticed that. Could you tell me more about that? I hadn't heard of Matterport. I hadn't heard of a virtual tour. Is that like this, that, or the other? So just by being on OWL, I was open to the possibility.
Yes.
And then I'm busy a lot of times, so I'm not ready to take calls. So I just didn't list myself as being live. So I found that I had time in my schedule to say, oh, this, I'll go live on OWL for an hour or two. And all of a sudden I started to receive calls when it was convenient for me. And then that conversation began.
Absolutely.
So is that just a technique in itself? If you're just not an outbound phone person, call person, just be open to the possibility that others like calling and they'll call you?
Yeah, and we did that by design. Whenever someone is new to the platform, they have to apply to become an expert. Once we approve them, we require them to do their first 10 phone calls at $1. And we do put a new symbol on their headshot. And what's nice about that, it lets the other people in the community know that this is a first-time user and we want to make it a good experience. And you could tell because their call count has 0. Calls taken will be listed as 0 in that case. And they also typically have 0 reviews. So what's nice is other people, want to see other people succeed on our platform. So they typically will call that new individual. And it's really treated as, a demo call. They want to let the individual know how the platform works and the best practices to do on their profile, for example, how to do their profile over if they notice something. And it's really encouraging more users to kind of follow the trend, how to use it the best way.
Okay, Jason. So I've listened to the show so far. I say, oh, okay, I'll try this thing, this OWL. Okay, maybe you can share your screen, and even before talking about, go ahead if you would share your screen, and even before you start showing us how to set up an account, is perhaps what you could do is just maybe just take us through at the top level. How what was I doing in terms of making a call with the OWL platform, and then perhaps how do I be open to receiving calls from OWL?
Okay, so this is the view of an expert. They have a timer mechanism right here, and I'm going to go offline to show everyone the first step. Right now, no one can call me, right? I just logged into the platform, but when I log in, every expert's presented with this timer mechanism, and this is the best part of this technology. I could have a cancellation in my schedule for the day and decide, hey, I'm just sending some emails out. I don't mind going live on OWL. We allow people to set a timer up to 4 hours. And when I hit save, now my timer started. And what that did is that put me live. So that's telling all my followers, 961 of them, that I'm willing to take a phone call right now. And I'm listing myself at $99 for 10 minutes. Right? If I wanted more calls, I could lower it down to $1. Of course, I would get calls at $1 because 961 people got a notification that I was available to take calls. They also could set up where they get a text message. So under notifications, there's different alerts. So my OWL text alerts, you could set up a cell phone number and get a text message. Because if you really want to speak to an individual, obviously text message is a lot stronger than a notification.
Okay,
so
can we take a look at your profile? Maybe just, pop in. I see there's a read more. So you list some suggested questions, what to
Yep.
expect during your call, and then there's some backstory about you. And then if we go back to, and then you've put some hobbies and personal interests. So it's really not hard to connect with you, not like a physical call, but in terms of, oh, you're interested in sailing and boating and traveling and
Correct.
chilling on the beach. There's other ways to begin a conversation with you other than let's talk business. There's a way to like still do a gracious opening. Hey,
Yeah.
Jason, thanks for taking my call. I noticed you're interested in boating. I
Yes.
love sailing myself. Tell me about that. Oh, and then a conversation begins where there's some commonality, perhaps. And then I see that you have links that go to your LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, your website. So you can read more about you. Okay, great. And then at a top level, what other, and then I noticed you had some videos as well. So at the very bottom on the OWL app, if we went back to the OWL, I know you're in LinkedIn, but if we went back to the OWL app, then at the very bottom, that there was some lists of some videos. Okay, great. So you played one earlier. If we go back up to the top on your profile, there was some keywords that you've chosen, like podcaster and finance. So perhaps you could show us how to search for just realtors. Maybe we just start with there, a realtor in Orlando.
Yeah. So under here is the filter search, right? So if you want to go broad, right, these are all the broad topics. You go hobbies, you could do expertise. So this is expertise, right? So if we want to look at real estate, there's photographer there, but let's do real estate only, right? And then hit apply. All these people listed real estate, in their expertise somewhere. So you scroll down, these
And we
people are
could
not
see that there
live.
were a couple that were live now, not to say you couldn't just click on anyone and I presume request the call or request that they
Correct.
go live.
So I could request Daniel go live. The ability to use that feature means you must have the amount of money in your digital wallet that he's charging. He's charging $1 and it worked. If he was charging $10,000 and I clicked it, it would say insufficient funds, because we don't want Daniel getting an alert or notification for someone who can't afford to pay for that call when he goes live. And we can see up here, these people, showed up. So if I pick Dan, right, Dan's on a call right now, which is yourself, I could notify me when available, because I know that you're going to come off a phone call and then you'll be available. And I want a notification when that occurs. But I could call Kelly and Mike right now. So let's pick Kelly. Kelly's charging $1 for 10 minutes, right? And I could click the call button. I could list an agenda, real estate, in, South Florida. That could be the topic, so she knows why I'm calling. And I could hit the call button and immediately, we won't do it now, of course, because it will ring her cell phone like a regular cell phone call, and we get connected, which is so cool because she's saying to the world, you can call me, right? Right now with all other platforms, we've just gotten addicted to messaging and then saying, let's set up a meeting in the future. Then it's setting up a Zoom meeting typically. And what happens? It's 3 weeks down the road and then something comes up and it gets canceled, right? And people get frustrated with cancellations. Their time is so valuable. With OWL, that can't happen. You could instantly call them, which is so cool.
So I've taken you off screen share. Thank you for that. So it's OWL is super interesting. How did this begin?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been in the financial service business my entire career, giving advice, networking, and I moved to Florida 6-7 years ago with my family. I have 2 young children, and I started podcasting. And you see in the background, it says the shrimp tank over here. I've interviewed over 250 entrepreneurs, and I've heard their journey and how they scaled a business. I've learned from their failures, and COVID-19 hit. And just the light bulb went off. Everybody was dying to have conversations. Everyone missed human interaction. They wanted to network. And I just looked at all the platforms like LinkedIn, and I knew from my struggles, I would have so much difficulty talking with people, getting them on phone calls. And then I would get always frustrated with all the cancellations that would occur once a meeting was set. And same thing with cancellations, even for my podcast, where I'm giving someone such value to an in-person show and footage and recordings. And I just thought there had to be a better tool out there, and it didn't exist. So at that point, it's just like COVID, just kind of made me think outside the box. I go, wouldn't it be cool when I drive to work every morning for 30 minutes, after I listen to a podcast, I could maybe call the person I just listened to, right? I always want to pick their brain more about that conversation they were speaking about on a podcast, but you go on Instagram, you go on LinkedIn, and you get ignored, right? I'm there, a business owner, willing to even spend money. And I know they'd be willing to take my money, but there's no platform that has it set up properly. Like everyone's like, oh, you could just Venmo them. It's like, that's awkward to Venmo somebody money to speak with them, right? So there's no real platform out there that enables, payment processing smoothly and giving people that opportunity to take time if they want to speak to other individuals. And it's so cool. I've been on OWL where I go live and I get calls from friends. They're like, oh, I saw you live on OWL, so I knew you were willing to accept my call, or colleagues or other past guests of the Shrimp Tank, because it's too uncomfortable, right? I don't know on my morning drive that Dan is up drinking his coffee and he's willing to have a chat with me. So it's so unique that you could drive to Disney World, which I'm going tomorrow for 3 hours, and just jump on a couple calls and get so much accomplished during my drive. And we're all looking to do more passionate projects. We've seen the growth of entrepreneurship, the gig economy, and we just see so many individuals after their 9 to 5, they come home and they're working on their passion project. And then OWL enables that, because they could do it from 5 to 10 o'clock at night, for example, and really just, scale that other business outside of their 9 to 5 and use OWL as a connection tool to build relationships. Because we all know that, the people with, the biggest brands have the biggest networks at the end of the day. And they've put so much time into, having people trust them, and like them. And with OWL, it enables that because of the review mechanism at the end of every phone call.
So I rate the person I talk to, they rate me, they put
Yes.
if we talk, they'll put in a description, perhaps to say, definitely take a call with Dan, he's interesting.
Yeah.
Want to learn something about virtual tours, Dan's the man.
Absolutely. And then you could take that and use a screenshot, put on your website, and use it, as leverage, to share with your audience. Hey, you could call me. You could put office hours on your LinkedIn profile or Instagram and tell the world, hey, I'm available certain times per week, for example.
So it's interesting on the rating system. I felt it was a little bit like taking an Uber, meaning
Yes.
I wanted to be on my best behavior because I know the driver rates me. And if I want to get picked up, I better be rated highly by drivers.
Yes.
And that driver probably wants to be on their best behavior because they know that the passengers are going to rate them, never mind tips,
Yes.
but just rate them. And then all of a sudden, for example, we were talking to Brian, 1,000 plus 5-star reviews. Well,
Incredible. Yeah.
that says something about the quality of that interaction. So I would imagine if you get on the phone and you're just hawking your product, buy virtual tours, buy real estate photography, you're not going to get a high star rating. But if you give people a chance to know, like, and trust you, then you have an opportunity to move the rating up, and then at some point have the appropriate conversation or ask for referrals.
Absolutely.
So when you started OWL, was it a little bit like, oh, I used to go to trade shows and conferences and events and luncheons and networking events, and poof, that totally went away during 2 to 3 years of COVID? Was this meant as this is the metaphor for that?
Yeah, I mean, some of it, yes. And some of it was prior frustration. I thought that it was also great timing in the marketplace because everyone was working from home. And for the foreseeable future, we did not see that, people would go full time in many careers in the future back to the brick and mortar space. So I just knew it was perfect timing to go after such a crazy idea, bootstrap a mobile platform with many developers behind the scenes. Everyone said you're crazy. These are so expensive to build and maintain. But I learned so much from interviewing successful entrepreneurs that have been in my shoes. And I just looked at it and said, you only live once. I've done well for myself as a financial advisor. And, you know, thankfully I had a nice nest egg saved up. And this is my aha moment in life to go for something a little different, a little bit more passion behind it to impact millions and millions of people, right? I can impact, you know, a lot of people in the financial service space, but not like OWWL. OWWL connects people, and we've seen a lot of people on the personal side be impacted. I think we talked a lot about business, but when you look at our tagline on our website, it's whether using the app for personal or business to build rich relationships. And I'll use a story of someone that, you know, really leveraged the platform in a unique situation. His son swallowed a metal bottle cap while he was visiting Disney World. And he saw a doctor live on the platform that happened to be a very well-known doctor that lived in South Florida. And what he ended up doing, he's called the doctor and he asked for a reference. And it gave him peace of mind because he knew that doctor knew so many medical professionals in the Disney World area. So, you know, OWWL can be leveraged as a tool for personal situations. You look at the mental health crisis, you know, going on in the United States with young men in their 20s, right? It's uncomfortable to call people you know, but it's not when you're able to call someone on OWWL and you're able to look at their background and know that that professional can give you proper guidance. So there's a lot of personal situations where we're seeing coming out of OWWL where you get the opinion, oh, I have multiple sclerosis, you have multiple sclerosis, and that individual tells that person, hey, did you try this? It really helped me. And they walk away with this personal connection from that phone call and had nothing to do with business. It's just a personal phone call. So we're seeing that side of OWWL as well make such impact.
So I'm a real estate photographer. I offer virtual tours. I watch the show. Okay, I heard Dan say, you know, go to WGAN.info/OWWL, OWWLL. That'll give you either the Android or iOS app. Use the referral code WGAN. Then what? What's the process to get started? What's that look like?
So when they use your code, they're going to get $10 as a bonus right at sign up. Then they could go into the app. And with very limited information, they don't have to fill out all their bio. They can make a couple calls on the house, right? Obviously, if they call 10 people at $1, that's 10 calls, and they could potentially have 10 new relationships, you know, from not putting their credit card in. Now they want to, you know, spend hundreds of dollars a month on it. They could add their credit card and make outbound calls. Now, if they want to take the next step and become an OWWL expert, they must apply. The reason why we make people apply is we want people to list all their social media handles, a professional photo, and we want a professional bio. If we allowed everyone to be an OWWL expert without that application process, then we'd have a lot of empty templates with no headshots, and we didn't want it to look like that. So we force those people to do that for that reason. And at that point, they could accept calls and make real money. And once they make over $50, they can make a withdrawal to their bank account. And within days, they have the funds that they've earned into their bank account. Now, what we see, though, is a lot of people don't really care to take out $50, $100 because they want to use the money they earn to then call other professionals. So that's what we see a lot of inbound calls and outbound calls simultaneously, unless you're a very big influencer or a niche expert in your field, and you use the OWWL app really as a funnel tool to allow your audience to call you because you get so many incoming messages, and you're utilizing it just to get the right people that are calling you, and it could form opportunities for your business itself, like a patent attorney, as an example.
So I sign up,
Yep.
I get my $10 in to spend on calls, and I see that there are many that charge $1 for 10 minutes, means I can make 10 calls to those people. I can see when people are live. Why is it that you charge a dollar, or why is it that when I sign on for the first time, I can't just charge $250?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Why do I need to do 10 calls at $1 before I can set my own rates?
It's a great question. When we first launched the OWL app, when we were in beta, we noticed that a lot of people would come in and list high rates and not realize that they could change their rates after they set it for the first time. But we noticed that they would go live, not get any phone calls, and say to themselves, hey, this is really cool platform. No one called me, so I'm not going to use it anymore. Right? They didn't experience what you just showed the audience, which was a live phone call, live interaction. So we ended up realizing that we lost so many professionals that didn't get the opportunity to actually use it because they would just expect someone to call them at that rate. And it comes back to bad marketing at the end of the day. A lot of professionals were big on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn, and they would list themselves with one sentence in their bio, and then immediately assume that other individuals would take the effort to click their social media handles and validate that that person's worth $250 for a 10-minute call. And what ended up happening is they would get no calls and look at it as the app was broken. So we realized real quick is we have to, really educate our new experts on how the phone rings, right? You have to get used to how the phone settings work and how the calls come in and how when people ask for an extension. And what we found is when people charge high rates, their first call was the other caller educating them how to use the platform. And it was a waste of that individual's money. They were just being nice. And a lot of people were being nice and spending a lot of their own money. So we realized real quick that just doing 10 calls, which is really easy, like you noticed, because everyone will call you. And within a day or two, you could increase your price to what you want and get to 10 calls.
Yes. I also, I would endorse the business plan of here's $10 and there are plenty of people that list themselves for $1 for 10 minutes and do the 10 calls, because I think, until I received 10 calls and then I made outbound calls, it was really hard for me to understand a little bit about OWL. And then I think my initial thinking might have been, oh, I'm a subject matter expert related to Matterport, I'll charge a bazillion. No, when I made the calls and I received calls, I kind of realized this was really more about a community. And it's not about hitting people over the head about, making money, perhaps as a subject matter expert. It's not about, getting on the phone and pitching people. It's about having an opportunity to get people to have a know, like, and trust opportunity that may lead to an introduction. It may lead to business. It may not, but it isn't yet another way to network and to do it one-on-one.
And I'm gonna put you on the spot, because recently I had somebody ask to delete OWL because he did not know how to use it and did not take a call. And then now he's been live every day. He's taken over 10 calls and fell in love with it. You yourself were also questionable before you had a couple calls. And then same with Mike, who we interviewed. And it's interesting, within a matter of weeks, look at the people you've networked within the real estate industry and photography industry. So I would like you to share kind of where you started and then what has blossomed so quickly, I guess.
Well, I would say you don't know what you don't know until you do at least 10 calls.
Yes.
And it's super easy to just go live as a newbie with a badge that says new, and people will call you. And then you kind of get like a sense of, well, how are they going about their business development and how, and they never lead with their product or service. They always lead about, oh, I noticed that on your profile. What is this Matterport thing? What's this virtual tours? Oh, you live in Atlanta. Oh, so it was really interesting is to let the process happen and see how the community is using the OWL platform. And I think that will spark ideas. I think for me, one of the things that I've done is set up office hours, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time every Friday on OWL. And now I get people who want to chat, and sometimes I'm reluctant to have that conversation,
Yeah.
but knowing that okay, I'm making a commitment, whether it's a dollar for 10 minutes or $3 for 10 minutes or whatever it is, that there's 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, they may ask to continue the call, and I may decide whether to allow the call to continue or not, or say, hey, thanks, good visiting with you. I hope that works out for you. So I'm experimenting with office hours, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern time on Fridays, and directing people who are interested perhaps in selling me something or develop, okay, well, I suppose it's, is it worth $1 for 10 minutes of my time to have a chance to pitch me? I think probably it is. But it's a filter, and I just go live. So it's not like I'm setting up an appointment in my calendar. Anyway, so that's what I'm trying. Before we go, I want to read something to you and then maybe just get your reaction to it. OWL is a social networking platform that connects people instantly through private one-on-one audio calls, whether it's personal or business. Build rich relationships by calling who you want, charging what you want, connecting when you want. Your thoughts on that?
Of course, I absolutely love it, because we would change it around a lot the first, 6 months when we launched. And I finally came out with that exact sentence. And of course, I absolutely love it, because we were struggling for a long time trying to figure out, like, what is OWL, right? Everyone would always ask, like, who uses OWL? And it touched so many different industries. And when we were just saying, like, it was just for advice seekers and advice givers, right? That pigeonholed a lot of people that wanted to network. We have a lot of professional athletes on this platform. We have a lot of people on Cameo that are celebrities that love it to reach their audience. So that statement you just read really connects everyone, one big community, and that community could use it on a personal level or a business level. And at the end of the day, you get to do with it what you want. You could call who you want. You could charge what you want. So if you're an individual that wants to charge $10,000 for 10 minutes and you're Gary Vaynerchuk, go ahead, charge $10,000, and you have an audience that you serve that will pay that amount. So why should we pigeonhole you, at the end of the day? And how cool is it that it's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? You could call someone at any moment. You're just unhappy, call a happy expert, get cheered up. You want to call a comedian, right? We have an impersonator on there that talks like Donald Trump, and he is hilarious. And for $10 after a bad day, you could get a laugh, on your drive home from work, for example, or with your buddies playing poker, which is what I did. And we're all hysterical playing poker, as we called him in, of course.
Awesome. I promised a special offer. When you join OWL with WGAN.info/OWL, OWWLL, using the WGAN-TV referral code WGAN. As Jason mentioned, first, you'll get a $10 credit, good to call 10 people for 10 minutes, call 10 people each for 10 minutes each. And if you talk to me for 10 minutes, you'll receive 3 months of WGAN-TV training you in Matterport, no credit card necessary. So maybe worthwhile just to call just to get that special offer and learn what OWL's about. Jason, thanks for being my guest today on the show.
Absolutely. And I'm going to spice it up. I just got these brand new Nikes that were custom made, and they say OWL. So for anyone who downloads the app that uses your code, when they receive 100 calls, that referral that came in through your code, I will go out and get them a custom pair of Nikes that look just like this, with their size, of course. So thank you for having me on the show today. And anyone listening, I'm happy to chat with you on OWL. Message me on LinkedIn. I typically refund the call costs for those calls just to help our community out, and love pointing people in the right direction to the audience they serve, to the other individuals on the platform, of course.
Awesome. We've been visiting with OWL app founder, Jason R. Hill. I'm Dan Smigrod, founder of the We Get Around Network Forum, and you've been watching WGAN-TV.